morning, everyone. Welcome back into the show. Today, we are joined by someone who has worn many hats and worn them all with purpose. George Russo is a proud Queens native, a retired attorney, a second-generation business owner, and a passionate community leader. From his early days as a prosecutor in the Queens District Attorney's Office to his current work as the president of the Boys and Girls Club of Metro Queens, George has spent a lifetime giving back to the borough that's raised him. He's the longtime owner of the Villa Russo Catering Hall, a cornerstone of Richmond Hill since 1954, and a guiding force behind multiple civic and charitable organizations, all while raising a beautiful family with his wife, Antha. So without further ado, everyone, please welcome George Russo to the show.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Good
Thank you for the invitation. Yes, good morning.
How you doing today?
Doing great.
Enjoying that sunshine, right? We were talking about it this morning.
It's a gorgeous day.
It's feeling
It's a
great.
gorgeous day.
Yes. Well, thank you for bringing the light in here. And I
Okay.
mean, I could just continue to go on and on with an intro for you. That's how many things you're doing. But we just want to kind of kick off this conversation by taking it back into the beginning, because you actually have an interesting story of where you're from. So you were actually born on an Air Force base in Alaska.
Yes.
How cool is that? So can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing?
Sure. Well, my mom and dad met each other. They were children of Ozone Park, Queens, went to local high school together. And my father was, it was at or around the Korean War. And he was drafted into the service, the armed service. And they were dating. And he was being shipped. He didn't know where he was going to be shipped. Was it going to be Germany? Was it going to be... So then he heard it was Alaska, and the Army has it's kind of a joint base. It's an Air Force base, but there's an Army base on that Elmendorf Air Force Base. So he was shipped there in 1952-ish, 53. And my mom, they decided to get married, and so she could join him there. And he served for a couple of years, and during that time of service, I was born in Elmendorf Air Force Base in Alaska.
Wow.
So it's pretty interesting. And they had a little, I see pictures, you know, of little cute little cabin that they were in. And my mom often tells me that those were the happiest days of her life.
Wow.
You know, to start off a family, just the two of them, and my father had a steady job, which, you know, when he came back, he was an entrepreneur, he opened up a business, and, you know, that was a whole another life that they started. Yeah. But in Alaska, it was kind of much more, you know, compartmentalized. They worked together. She was a secretary. He was a KP. He did KP duty on the set in the base. So they had a very, very humble beginning. And then shortly thereafter, he came back, and that's when he started what was Russo's Pizzeria.
Wow.
He had helped his dad, my grandfather, was kind of an entrepreneur here and opened up a couple of what you would call maybe deli or sandwich shops today. And my dad, when he was very young, he worked since he was very young, and he worked for his dad. And so he had that little bit of food, hospitality kind of background. Today we would call it hospitality. Back then it would be you know, working at a delicatessen or something. He did a little KP duty in the Army. When he came out, he decided to open up a restaurant. Actually, it was a pizzeria.
And this is it, right?
Well, that's the restaurant. That's the
okay.
first iteration of the restaurant. There was an earlier photo. I don't know if we have it, but of the actual pizzeria.
Ah, okay.
So he had a vision. That picture represents one half, it represents two buildings, and one of the buildings was originally a pizzeria. And through hard work and dedication and love of what he did, him and his brother, my Uncle Joe, was a little younger than my dad, and they started humbly delivering pizzas. You know, pizzeria is a very unforgiving business. From early in the morning till late at night. But my father had a little bit of a vision. He bought the building that he was in. The same owner owned the building next door. He bought that.
Oh, wow.
Now, when we say purchase, he kind of, you know, paid notes over a long period of time. It wasn't like, hey, back then,
cash, yeah.
Right.
back then might have been 10 or 20,000, but it was paid over time, taking up notes, paying the seller over a long period of time. So, and then they expanded into a full-service restaurant. So it's kind of a look into the American dream.
Yeah.
You come here, you work hard, you start small, you start humbly, and you do what you really enjoy.
Yeah.
And one step at a time. And if you're fortunate enough to have a little vision and buy a building, now you're kind of controlling your own destiny, so to speak.
Yeah.
And taking risks.
Sure.
They were risk takers. Expanding, buying equipment, and in the interior design, and just taking that next step from a little pizzeria to a restaurant.
Yeah.
And then there was an oversized Victorian house behind this, what was then the restaurant. We're talking now, the pizzeria opened in 1954. And in 1965-ish, they buy the building, and then they rent next door first, purchase it later on. So now they have two buildings side by side. They expand. That's in like the mid-60s. So now you go from a pizzeria in 1954 to a full-service restaurant in like 65, 66. And they do well because my uncle he's a genius cook. He goes to Italy, he learns dishes, he has a passion. He was a little bit of a Nazi in the kitchen. He ran that kitchen like it was a military organization.
Yeah.
Well, you need someone like that,
Yeah.
right?
You
Keep
need
things
someone
in
like that.
line.
It was me and my brother, who's also in the industry, we talk about it was a perfect combination.
Okay.
My father didn't want to be in the kitchen,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and if my uncle was out of the kitchen, nothing good happened. So stay in the kitchen.
Well, you need everyone to have a role. In
Everybody
order
had
for
a
it to
role.
Continue. I love that.
Everybody had their territory.
Yeah, and would you would run in the kitchen and hang out, want to see what was happening in there?
Well, I grew up in the business.
Yeah.
My mother would pick me up from school. We'd go to the pizzeria. I would do my homework on a little table.
Yeah.
And then I would start folding pie boxes and helping out. And I was a dishwasher when I was 12 years old, before they even had a dishwasher machine.
You were the machine.
I was the machine. It was a 3-compartment sink. You went from one to the other to the other.
They had two hands.
So I learned from the ground up, and I watched the two of them, my uncle and my dad, work hard and treat people the right way.
Yeah.
And invite the community in, give back to the community. And they built a very successful business.
Yeah.
Just the way they treated people.
Sure.
And then my father always had a dream of doing catering, serving his clients their special occasions. Because he had a little party room, held about 35, 40 people. And they would have parties and small engagements, and he saw that the future of the business was, he saw it as the catering was the future of business. Restaurant is a little unpredictable, the rain, the weather, what have you, time of the year. Catering, you book an event, you know how many people are coming in, it's easier to manage, you know how to staff it up, you know what kind of food to order, how much food to order, as opposed to a restaurant that's a little more fickle in terms of business. So there was an oversized Victorian house right behind the two buildings that they had purchased, which were the restaurant. And my father bought the building. And now this was the first ground up construction. It was a little different than buying a building and just kind of renovating.
Yeah.
So ground up took maybe 3 or 4 years to develop that.
Yeah.
And when you open up a catering hall, it's not like a restaurant. You don't just open the doors and people come in. You open the doors and they book an event for a year from now.
Yeah.
So there's a lag of time. It's a different kind of gestation period,
Yeah.
So they struggled. Everything was a struggle. I saw them struggle, weeks where nothing was going on.
Wow.
But ultimately, through, again, their name, by this time they had a name recognition.
Yeah.
And he started doing weddings and sweet 16s and engagements. And, people tell me stories about my dad. We're getting married. In those days, when you got married, you opened up the envelopes. It wasn't like today where you paid ahead of time. It was like, okay, you got, in Italian, they call it a busta. It's an envelope. What am I going to give for?
Yeah.
So the bride and groom would go into a little room and open up the envelopes and count their money and pay for that evening's event.
Wow.
So my father would say, I don't want you to spoil your night. don't stay here any longer. Go on your honeymoon, come back, pay me when you come back.
Wow.
Wow, that's a lot of trust.
That's a lot of trust.
Ooh.
Wow.
And you know, the Italian Americans, if you know a little history, the Southern Italians who
Yeah.
came mostly to America, they didn't trust the government.
Yeah.
They didn't trust, you know, their country, their government, whatever. So they weren't very trusting. And you know, they came here. They were immigrants, finding their way like the experience of people coming here today.
Yeah.
You know, America, and especially New York City, is an immigrant made up of immigrants, and they weren't. Here's a man who says, "I trust you. You go on your honeymoon. You pay me." No, his name was Frank. They would call him Mr. Frank. I want to pay
Yeah.
you. No, you go home. You come back, then you pay me. So that went through the whole Italian American community. This man trusts us.
Yeah.
Not only do we have a good product and he treats us, but he's one of us. He extended that trust to us.
And trust is how you build good community relations. It's how you build relationships, and then word of mouth, especially in a tight
Every business is a relationship business. So if I trust you, and unfortunately, it's a little difficult to do that today. It's a different world.
It's a very, you don't leave your doors unlocked.
Right.
Yeah, especially.
And you don't
in
hope
that
that people
area.
come back to pay you.
Yeah, exactly. No, you need the money now.
Yeah, you
Rent's
do.
going up.
Yes.
We need it now. But you saw all this, and you saw a little bit of the struggles that your parents went through in the beginning, and then you saw the great community outreach with them and how they built such a name. Is that what made you want to continue on in the family business? Because right now, you know, you have Villa Russo, which is huge, and then you also have Russo's on the Bay. We have some footage that we can show as well of that. So what was that made you want to kind of, I don't know, take the reins yourself?
You know, I joke, I said, I was the black sheep of the family. I went to law school. You know? So I went to law school, came out. It was an incremental decision. You know, at the time, it was my father, my uncle, me, and my brother. There were 4 of us.
Yeah.
And running the business, and there was enough room for, you know, everyone. And I said, you know, they don't really kind of need me, you know, in a way. And I did it. Hey, one of the family members maybe should take some business courses, which I did. Then maybe one of the family members, maybe I'll get a law degree and help the family. It was all kind of intended to bring a different value to my family's business.
Yeah.
So, and then I worked in the DA's office in Queens. It was kind of like, hey, let me try this job. It was one of the best jobs I ever had. It was really great.
Wow.
You know, and gave me an exposure to something different than the restaurant catering world.
Yeah.
But then my father got a little sick. My uncle passed away. My brother opened up Russo's on the Bay. So it was kind of like that scene, and, you know, they kept pulling me back in. So they pulled me back in, and but it's an enjoyable business. You know, there's music playing, people are dressed. It's a happy special occasion. It's a pleasure and an honor to be part of people's special day. You know, you're in people's lives. You're touching their lives at such a special time.
Yeah.
You know, their daughter's sweet 16 or a christening or their wedding, and you know, they take photos and they take videos, and you know, this is a memorable event.
Yeah.
So you really, like, people say, what business are you in? I'm in the memory business.
I love that. I love
Right?
that.
We're creating memories together.
I love that.
Look at these memories that we're showing right here. These people are going to have it for a lifetime.
This is amazing. And you know, so you know, you mentioned also in the beginning, I had read a blog post that you had put out, and it was, you were touching upon the different attributes that it takes to be an entrepreneur. You know, how you just have to have that resilience and the ability to not quit and things like that. So as you're kind of transitioning from, you begin in the hospitality business, as we're going to call it. I love the memory business. I love what you just said. But you transition from there, and now you're at the DA's. So what was the point as you leave the DA's office, now with your new skill set? What was your next plan of attack? Like, what was your next involvement after you leave the DA's office and you jump back into the family business?
Well, when I leave the DA's office, because I have this entrepreneurial streak,
Yeah.
you know, and that was working for the man, you know.
Yeah.
But I wanted to open up my own law practice. So, you know, I wanted to start from scratch. My father started from scratch.
Yeah.
And I didn't see the connection, but I started with no clients, a little office. And I enjoyed, like, real estate and the area of real estate. So I kind of followed, you know, my interest, you know. And that's what I tell young people today. Just follow your energy. Where's your energy taking you? You know, like, don't get in your own way. What is it that you really like to do? try it out. So I was practicing real estate law. And then, as I said, you know, my brother went out and he opened up Russo's on the Bay, our sister property. And my uncle passed, my father got sick, and I was like, I got to come back into the family business. You know, so it wasn't kind of a decision. It pulled me back in.
Yeah.
And, you know, just being in the DA's office and seeing a different world, and it had its own universe of people, and meeting my friends and colleagues that were in the DA's office today are judges, and so that kind of was a different kind of world for me.
Yeah.
I don't know what it actually, how it connected to my entrepreneurial streak. It was just kind of I look back and it was a really nice time in my life. It was different. I didn't have, it's totally different than hospitality or restaurant or catering.
Yeah.
You know, I tried cases. It was exciting. It was different. You know, it was kind of like, hey, this is a different aspect of my life.
Absolutely.
You know, just a different experience.
Yeah. And now at this point, are you doing everything at once now? Are you now in family business? And then you said you had mentioned you started your own practice from the ground up, inspired by your father. So are you doing already? Are you wearing multiple hats at this point?
Well, you know, at one point, I was, because now I'm back in I'm owner and operator of Villa Russo, where my father started. I'm very proud of that. It's a family legacy. And I want to talk about where we're going next iteration. We'll talk about that. But I was juggling three things. I also opened up a title company. A title company is real estate based. When you purchase a house, you get insurance. They call it title insurance. It kind of protects the buyer from inheriting any issues from the seller. Are there any judgments or liens, et cetera, on that house? So I call ourselves the Ghostbusters. Are there any ghosts in this house that you're buying? We want to look at them.
Yeah.
You know,
Take them out of here.
Yeah. Now, it's not a physical inspection. It's kind of a documentary inspection. Is there an open mortgage? Is there an open lien? Are there any judgments? Was there an illegal tenant in the basement that there was a violation? How do we get rid of these issues when the buyer buys a house?
Sure.
So that's part of, that kind of was an offshoot of my real estate practice.
Yeah.
So you kind of can't do both in a way, because there might be, if you represent one client as a title company and an attorney. So I said, you know what? And now I'm running a catering hall as well. So I got three hats.
Wow.
And it was a little too much. So I said, you know what? The law practice is taking up about 65% of my time, and maybe it's 25% of my revenue. And it's filled with type A personalities by necessity. We got to offer, we got to sign a contract on Friday night. I don't want anybody else to come here. George, where are you? Emails, phone calls. It's an immediate, the industry is immediate now. There's no more snail mail. I'll send you a letter. No.
Oh, yeah.
Email me a contract. We want to sign it today. And it was a little too much for me doing these three things. So I said, you know what? Let me just retire from the practice of law. I don't want to be in the weeds anymore. I'm more of a manager.
Yeah.
My title company is more managerial. Catering hall is more managerial, meeting with your maitre d's, meeting with your kitchen staff, you know, coordinating those two events, making sure that the event is when it's booked, and then the gestation period, taking deposits, et cetera, then finalizing the event. What kind of colors do you want for your, what kind of decor do you want? So that's all done by my staff, and I get to train and I get to oversee. But in the practice of law, you're the one.
Yeah.
You have the file. You're going to the closing. You're doing the contract.
Yeah.
It was really sucking my time.
Yeah.
So I said, you know, let me just make my life a little simpler. I'm not getting any younger. I enjoy the business, the catering and restaurant business.
Yeah.
Practice of law is a little drier. You know, it's a little more stressful. People, maybe they buy 3 or 4 houses in their lifetime. It's kind of stressful for them. It's not life and death. It's not doctors. It's not hospitals, but it's like, I got to move. I got to pack my furniture. You know, my kid's got to go to a new school. Like, there's a lot going on. It's a change of life. So people are very, very anxious, and you're kind of like a therapist for them for those 3 months that they're buying a house.
Yeah, because you're like, it's okay.
Yeah, what do I do now? Yeah. I want to do the
Yeah.
walkthrough. Is the washer dryer working? I
Yeah.
can't see the pool. It's not working right now. Okay.
Well, you bring up such a good point because you don't really hear from the other side of it. You hear from the buyer's perspective, but like, how do you ground yourself, right? Because you can go crazy with all these clients. This is all happening. Whoa, slow down for a second.
And if you're
Yeah.
busy and you're successful, you might have 75 files.
Yeah.
So on a given day, you might be touching 20% of those files.
Yeah.
Just people want to hear, are we okay?
Yeah.
How is my mortgage commitment coming along? Are we going to closing? How much money do I have to put aside?
Yeah.
What are my closing costs?
Yeah.
So you want to prepare them for this, life event.
Well, it's a huge milestone,
It
and they're
is.
spending a lot of money.
It's
and
it's the biggest
Yeah.
investment you'll probably make in your lifetime.
100%. And they say that moving is like top 3 stressors of life.
Right.
Like going through a death, I think it's moving and getting a new
Moving.
job. I think those are like the top 3. Not
Right.
really sure what order, honestly.
yeah.
But yeah, so I'm sure that definitely
And
took a
people are
toll on
like
you.
very, very anxious and stressed. So
Yeah.
you're kind of like, hey, this is not life or death. We're going to get there.
Yeah.
You don't want to be jaded. You do it every day, but
Yeah.
that doesn't mean that that's the only time or the first time they're doing that.
Yeah.
Especially a first-time home buyer going
Totally.
from an apartment to a home. What do I do? What are my taxes going to be?
Yeah.
It's an educational process. Just like booking a wedding. It's the first, most people, it's the first time they're getting married. What does this look like?
Yeah.
How do I do my seating arrangement? What kind of decor? Where do I sit my aunt? She doesn't really talk to my...
Figuring out,
Yeah,
we don't
figure-
want to brawl.
Right,
You're
right,
there,
right,
you're there. Oh no, those
Yeah.
are very important. I think the through line that I'm seeing is throughout your life and everything you've put your hands in are client relations. And you just being, and I can tell you're a people person,
Yes.
whether you're doing law, real estate, of course, what you're doing with the catering business as
Right.
well, the banquet hall. It's all about that. But on top of that,
They
now
call
that
it
you,
soft skills today.
yeah, those are
Yeah.
not soft
No,
skills. Those are life skills.
And you learn them the hard way.
Yeah, I
yeah.
like that. But on top of that, you were also involved in the community. Now that you've kind of stepped aside from more of the legal side of your life and your career, you're involved in the community, and I want to hear more about that. He's the president of the Boys and Girls Club. You do so many different things as well, and we want to hear what's coming up as well
Okay.
for Villa Russo. But first, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break, and then there's so much more to get to with Mr. George Russo, so don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back. It's not a song.
All right, welcome back to the AM show. We are here with our special guest, George Russo. He has a ton going on. We have so much more that we're looking forward to dive into. So without any further ado, George, of course, we're great to have you. And the stories in which you've been sharing have been amazing. Already very, very inspiring. I think we're people who live busy lifestyles, but you're just like, you're a giant when it comes to many of these things, And when we just left off, we were talking about a bit of your inspiration and how you just have a hand in your connection to the community. And we were just sharing about how stories and your interest for stories and how that kind of leads you into these different areas where, whether it's a wedding and people are getting married, what's the story behind the wedding? So you were actually sharing that you have some new things coming up. What's the story behind some of the new things that you are involved in?
Well, I don't know if you're aware that there's been an initiative in JFK. They call it the new JFK. So there's a $19 billion renovation going on in JFK. There's 2 new terminals going up from the ground up.
Oh.
The new Terminal 1 and Terminal 6, which is connected to JetBlue's Terminal 5. And the other terminals are expanding. What they're trying to do in JFK is, compete with those Dubai or Singapore airports that are kind of newly built, and there's more of kind of an entertainment and a value proposition from the terminals. It's not just getting on an airplane. It's what is your experience in the terminal. They call it a dwelling time, that the time from after you check in and you're past TSA and you get on your flight. That could be 2 hours. How are we handling our traveler? What kind of food are we giving them? What kind of experience are we giving them? What about the children? What about families? This is the beginning of their traveling experience. This is the beginning of their, where they're headed. So because of this initiative is in Queens and the funds are coming from the federal government, the politicians in Queens got together and said, listen, you're putting all this money into this airport, into our borough. We want those opportunities to trickle down to minorities, to women, to local business owners. So we want to reach out to local business owners that would have a name, and we want to elevate the food and beverage experience in a terminal. Wow. So, hey, who could we reach out to? Oh, wow, Villa Russo, you guys have been here for 70 years. You're a staple in Queens. You're a stone's throw away from the terminal. Would you be interested in coming in and bringing your quality and your expertise and your hospitality into our terminal?
Wow.
You know how huge it is that they reached out to you
That is
guys?
incredible.
Can I give you a high five
Wow.
for that?
Wow.
Guys,
Wow.
that impact.
Wow.
That is
That
huge.
is awesome.
Yeah,
And you said no, right?
said when?
Yeah, there you go.
Nothing happens overnight in the terminal. It's very bureaucratic. You know, you're talking about Port Authority, federal regulations, city regulations. However, it's taken close to 4 years to get to this point.
Wow, this is 4 years ago.
4 years. You know, there was a little interruption with COVID.
Okay.
Oh, that's
There was
interesting.
a little change of administration at Terminal 4, which is a very busy terminal.
Yeah.
To give you an example, there's 26 million people that go through Terminal 4 every year.
Wow.
And then they have these terms that I'm learning now, you know, they call it enplanement. What's an enplanement? An enplanement is someone who's getting on a plane. So that's the person who has their luggage, goes through security, TSA, get on the flight and go to their destination, as opposed to a deplanement, where someone's coming off the plane. So we want to serve those who are getting on a plane, those enplanements. And the average dwelling time in Terminal 4 is about 2 hours. So you have 13 million people going through Terminal 4, getting on a plane. So 13 million people every year are looking for somewhere to shop, maybe a gift shop, somewhere to eat.
Yeah.
You know, going to Hudson News where they want to get a book or a magazine, but they want to have maybe a snack.
Yeah.
Now, Villa Russo Cafe, which will open up in August, will serve pizzas, paninis, sandwiches, salads, breakfast items, grab and go, you know, in a very, very busy area of the terminal. Wow. It's around 2 very busy gates.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about taking my family's legacy and brand into an international terminal.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Where, you know, travelers from all over New York and Queens and all over the world either, you know, fly out of or come back into JFK. So,
Wow.
Amazing.
so it's a really, you know, my father's looking down and hopefully I'm sure he's smiling saying, hey, you know, our name, our brand is going to be in JFK International Airport. So it's a new chapter in my family's kind of legacy, from a little pizzeria to a restaurant to a catering hall, now to serving travelers.
International travelers.
International travelers.
Yeah.
Who, it's a gateway. You know, JFK is a gateway to New York, which is a gateway to the country.
Yes.
So we're kind of going to meet people like at where they connect to New York City.
Yeah.
So we're trying to bring the flavor of New York City into the airport.
That's so
Well,
good.
that's huge because a lot of people, they don't have the chance to actually go and explore New York. And
Correct.
so maybe they're heading to Los Angeles or they're going to
Right.
Chicago and they're like, hang on, I want real,
I want New-
authentic
yeah.
New York pizza
Yeah.
vibes. So
Yeah.
this is from Queens for how many years? Oh, sign me up. I know,
Yeah.
I would love to do that in a city I'd never been
And that's
to.
that's the whole
Yeah.
idea, that the terminals, hey, we
Right.
just don't want these big, you know, companies that, you know, this industrial kind of food. We want local Queens flavor. We want to bring Queens to our travelers.
Yeah.
So I'm very honored that they kind of thought high enough. But they've had, when I say the executives of Terminal 4 have been to our catering hall a number of times. So they know who we are. They know our name. They know our brand. And then this goes back to working hard over 70 years and one foot in front of the other and treating people the right way and giving them value and not looking at, well, one client at a time. You know, when we have an event for someone, it's kind of like, it's not a one-off. It's, hey, we've had weddings for people who've gotten christened in my place.
Wow.
That's how long we've been
That
there.
is amazing.
And we
Full circle.
full circle, and people come to us and say, I have all my parties here.
Yeah.
Like you know, what restaurant am I going to go to? No, this is my catering hall. They
Yeah.
treat
Duh.
they treat me well.
Yeah.
They remember me. I get a special, I know they're going to treat me really, really good.
Yeah.
I know my experience is going to be seamless. And they're gonna tell me what kind of DJ should I get, or who's a good florist, or who's a good videographer that you recommend.
Yeah, the hand-holding process, that I feel like when someone really grabs you and they're willing to walk you through a process, you feel it takes away the fear, which is I feel like fear drives a lot of other emotions. They trigger a lot of other emotions. Then the anxiety comes and the nervousness and everything. And for a huge occasion, what you're doing is you're walking people through the entire process. When people offer that level of comfort, you have a bond with them for life.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. It's kind of that period of time from walking in and searching for the right place, or knowing you're going into Villa Russo, Russo's on the Bay. That could be 6 or 8 months till your event comes.
Yeah.
So how do we do this? When do I send out my invitations? What happens when I get my responses? How do I choose my my decor, etc. Like you said, it's hand-holding. It's walking someone through a process that they weren't familiar with, taking the anxiety out of it.
Yeah.
Just we're here. We're gonna educate you. We're gonna teach you, and we're gonna work with you. Yeah. So,
amazing.
it's the same as like what I was doing when I was practicing law.
Yeah.
Same thing, just meeting people where they're at, lowering their, being an advocate for them, working alongside them.
Yeah.
And if you enjoy it, then it's a good business model.
It's a bonus.
People, they like you. People want to do business, and with who they like.
Yeah, that's the thing. Because there's so many options.
There's so many options.
Yeah, there's so many.
And if you look at your business as everything's a relationship business. This is not a transaction.
Yeah.
It's a relationship.
Yeah.
No, totally. And I love the fact that you're bringing that type of community and that relationship to JFK. And I just want to know, how have you guys been preparing? You're opening up in 2 months. I mean, it's very exciting. I'm sure the pressure's on a little bit. But to keep that authenticity of not just the food, but also the environment that you guys provide at your catering.
The culture.
Yeah, the culture. How are you bringing that to JFK and making sure the people that you're hiring there, are you bringing them from Queens to there? Are you hiring outside folks? How are you guys preparing to make it feel
I've been lucky enough to partner up with a company called HMS Host. They've been doing this in the airports throughout the country, throughout the world, for decades. So doing business in a terminal is like, Venus and Mars. A street location to an airport location is night and day.
Yeah.
So okay, let's do this. First time out of the box. I know what I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, let me work with HMS Host. They've been doing this. Okay, so I've designed the kitchen. We've designed the interior of what we call, it's a restaurant, but it's a walk-in.
Sure.
Now we're working on the menu. What kind of products, we want to elevate the products. Okay, what kind of a uniform are we going to have? Let's do that. Let's take one. So they've been able, iteration-wise, because they're so experienced in this is what we're going to do. Here's our timeline. Okay, we're not going to hire people yet. We're not there yet. Let's work on a kitchen design. Let's work on the exterior design, and it's really going to be unique. It's like rustic brick. It's not anything that you've ever seen in a terminal.
Wow.
It's not like, cookie cutter.
Yeah.
So we've worked on that. Now we're working on the menu. So we put the barricade wall up. Now we're working behind the barricade wall. I don't have anything to do with the construction. They're going to take care of it. They're hiring the contractors. They have to be vetted. It's a whole different process to build in an airport.
Sure.
So the good news is I'm partnered up with a very experienced company, and we're kind of collaborating on each step of the way.
Great.
And this is my first iteration, so I can't tell you, hey, this is the way it's going to go.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
That's one of the exciting parts.
Sure.
So we're walking they're walking me hand in hand like I would walk someone else.
Yeah.
So
But we know the food's going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing you
food's
can
gonna be
count
good.
on,
Food's
right?
gonna be-
that's my role.
There you go.
You know what I mean? So we want to do justice to my brand.
Yeah.
I want to make sure that that quality and consistency is there. The reason why you chose me is to elevate the food and beverage experience to the traveler, and that's what we're going to make sure happens.
Yeah.
So, and who knows? This might be the first of many, but for me, it's like, that's my name. We've taken pride in that over the years, and that's not ending.
Yeah.
And even though this is different, this is a travel. You may never see them again. That's not the point.
Yeah.
The point is each transaction or each, now it's not, you don't have much of a relationship, but you have a relationship with the terminal and you have a relationship with your pride, you know, and what you want to deliver.
Yeah.
So that's part of why the airport and the terminal reaches out to someone like me, because you have a name, you're invested,
Yeah.
and you're not just a corporation.
Yeah.
You know, so I'll be there. We'll be making sure we hire the right people. They get trained properly. The culture is developed over time, and this is about service to a customer. This is about giving them an elevated experience. This is about, we could call it a relationship with the travelers generally.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And just the beginning, JFK may just be the first stop. You never know.
You never know. So we were going to talk about, you know, my community involvement. I didn't want to leave that out
Oh, no, we
because
definitely will.
the connection of my business, growing that business over years in Queens County. My father always taught us, listen, if we had a vendor, let's use a local vendor. You want to buy something, do it locally. That's a small guy who's, you know, let's be a partner with him.
Yeah.
You know, your meat purveyor, your seafood guy, they're all local. And so stay involved in the community from a business point of view.
Yeah.
And what else can you do for the community? Okay, there's community boards. Let's get on the community board. Let's learn what's going on in our community.
Yeah.
So I've always enjoyed that. I'm proud to say that I'm the president of the Boys and Girls Club. We handle underserved community.
Yeah.
One of the things I'm really proud of with the Boys and Girls Club, we serve about 700 children a day. We have this Summer Youth Employment Program, SYEP. We put 1,600 students to work in the summer that the city pays for them.
Wow.
We find, you know, business hosts for them to go to work, and that city pays them to learn how to work in a business environment.
Wow.
Like Resorts World, their casino in Ozone Park, they're one of our benefactors. They hire about 25 children over the summer. So then we teach them skills. Okay, you're making this money. They'll make maybe $2,600 over the summer. But we're not going to give you cash. We're going to give you a card. And this card is kind of like a voucher. And you could go to your bank and you could pull money out from it. It's almost like a debit card. But what are you going to do with that money? Let's give you a course on what, you know, what a normal family would, what their expenses might be. So you understand you're not going to get $2,600 and go out and blow it.
Yeah.
We want to teach you where you're going to spend it, how much you're going to save, how much you're going to give to your parents. You know, this is a privilege for you. We're going to put you to work, but we want to teach you how to manage your money.
That's
What is a
huge.
checkbook? How do you make out a check? How do you do your own banking? You know, how do you take money out of the bank? You know, these are 17, 18-year-old children that kind of first experience with all of this.
Yeah.
So we're really proud of that. Another big initiative is every year United Airlines gives us 40 tickets, round-trip tickets, and we take 40 of our children to a college, on a college tour. Colleges they've never seen before. We'll go to the SEC and we'll go down south and we'll take them to a variety of different colleges.
Wow.
A couple of years ago, we took them out to Los Angeles. They went to see UCLA. They went to see Berkeley. They went to see Stanford. Now, they might not ever go there, but to just open up their world that you don't, it's not only City College that you have the ability to go to, and these colleges, because they get federal funds, if you come from a certain zip code, that our zip code makes our students more valuable and attractive to the universities. So these is opening up opportunities for these children who, all right, I'm going to go to CUNY. No big deal. Those are good schools.
Yeah.
But it's opening up my opportunity to go to other colleges. I've seen this campus. I went to Alabama campus. I love it.
Yeah.
How do I get there? You know, and then we help them within the Boys and Girls Club fill out their paperwork. What kind of, you know, what kind of grants might they be entitled to? And we give them opportunities to move out of the neighborhood. And then the boys and girls that have graduated from these universities come back and they do seminars with our children saying, I went to UCLA, you can do that.
Wow.
I come from the same community you come from.
Wow.
I grew up around the block from you.
Wow.
I went to Stanford because of the zip code, because they wanted me. They wanted a diverse student body. We're offering diversity to them. So we're very proud of that, opening up doors for these kids that, you know, they maybe haven't traveled more than 10 blocks from their home.
Yeah.
You know, but they come into the Boys and Girls Club, they do their homework. We have a computer room with 70 computers.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of initiatives. So I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. It really is what you're doing. Just being, I know even when I was looking for colleges, right? You have to go to the campus, go and see it, see the environment. But especially if maybe you've never even left the city before, your first time getting on a plane, it could be, and then you realize, whoa, the world is my oyster.
Or I come from a one-parent family, and my mom is working, or they don't speak English too well. And I am I have the most fluency in the English language in my whole family.
Yeah.
You know, so now, you know, who's gonna teach me? The Boys and Girls Club is there.
Beautiful.
That's amazing.
And on top of the Boys and Girls Club, you also are involved with another charity as well called Angels on the Bay.
Angels on the Bay.
And we actually have a video that discusses it a little bit. So let's check that out, and then I want to hear a little bit more.
All right.
Let's see it.
The Angels on the Bay Children's Charity raises funds to help and support specialized pediatric services and medical facilities, purchase the highest level of medical equipment that enhances the lives of children who need a little miracle. Since 1994, we have been founded on the values of commitment, family, faith, and service. It is our promise to build a legacy of giving, healing, and hope.
Wow.
I mean, isn't that something? So tell us about that.
Well, the genesis of that was one of our longtime maitre d's had lost his daughter at 6 years old. I'm going back actually 30 years.
Wow.
And we kind of felt helpless. What could we do? You know, to watch that little girl who's 6 years old go through what she went through and ultimately lose the battle.
Yeah.
So we wanted to give back. How do we give back? We wanted to create this philanthropic organization that dealt with pediatric cases. So who's around us? Again, community. What community facilities? Is it Jamaica Hospital? Is it St. Mary's Hospital for Children in Bayside? We want to give to local institutions that handle pediatric cases. And we don't want to just give money into their general fund because it kind of gets diluted. No. If we're going to raise $50,000 for St. Mary's Hospital for Children, what is it that we could wrap our knuckles on, so to speak, that's where our money is going. It's going to a neonatal care. It's going to, we raised $500,000 over the course of about 7 years for St. Mary's in Bayside to give them a gym for the young children to kind of work out, and not necessarily work out, but work out their whatever issues they're having, whatever physical issues they're having. So we raise about $250,000 a year. We do a fundraising event at Russo's on the Bay. We do a 5K. We do a disco night. So there's about 4 or 5 events during the course of the year that we raise $250,000. We've been doing it for 30 years. So you do the math. We've raised, you know, we've raised over $7 million.
It's insane.
You know, and it's our way of just, hey, what could we do? We have a catering hall. All of our staff, our vendors, everybody donates for that evening. Whatever we make from that evening, we sell the tickets. It's a fun night, but it all goes to, 98% of it goes to charity. There's no administrative fees. So we get proposals from different institutions. Hey, we know you guys are doing this. We would like, can you consider this $50,000 donation to do this in our facility? Okay, let's go before our little board. Hey, it's in our mission statement. It's for children. It's a give back. It's something tangible that we could actually buy and donate. So it's really very gratifying.
Beautiful work, amazing.
Unbelievable.
It's our way of saying, what can we do? You know, everybody wants to just give back. And you want to, like Mother Teresa says, you want to bloom where you're planted. We're planted in Queens. We want to get back to Queens. I'm also on the Queens Library Board, which I'm very proud of because libraries are kind of, they're kind of the centers of communities, especially for immigrant families that come here. You know, there's English as a second language, there's computer skills, you have seniors there. So it's kind of the first line of I guess, influence or introduction to a given community. A lot of people don't have where their children could do homework, you know? So go to the library, local library. So, and I'm a bookie. So, you know. I don't mean to book. I mean, I'm a book.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna
I said that wrong.
I'm a bookie. No, not that guy.
I'm Italian, but I'm not a book. But I'm a
Who are you at
bookworm.
for the championship, right? Who you going with, the Pacers? Yeah. Well, George Russo, just thank you so much for coming
Oh, it's
here,
my
for
pleasure.
sharing your light. I said it at the beginning because you came in as a ball of light, and now I'm feeling more energized because of everything that you're doing. I think it's quite incredible. And if you guys are in the Queens area, you guys are looking for a catering hall, look no further. Mr. George Russo will hook you guys up. Very inspiring, and I just wanted to thank you.
Well, I
so
want
much
to thank
for being here.
Jackie for just giving me my wings for today.
I love it.
Yeah.
Oh, I
So,
love that pin.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
It's an experience, and I very rarely talk about myself. You gave me an opportunity to talk about myself.
Hey, and I think you definitely need to, because it's definitely inspiring for us to get out and do more community work ourselves. So thank you for being here.
All right, my pleasure.
All right, guys, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We have more of the show when we return, so don't go anywhere.
Yeah.